This is episode 79 of our Road to Unicum, and today I review the AMX 1357. This is a Tier 7 French premium tank in World of Tanks, and this was the winner of the last community poll. Coming in second was the Emile 1, and tied for third was the T95. So I will be getting to those tech tree tanks in a future video. And as fate would have it, the 1357 is also on sale during the Advent season. So you have like 4 days to purchase it if you haven't already. Happy holidays to you all. We're going to be looking at two battles that are Tier 9s. First up is this Murovanka Tier 9 battle, and then we'll also look at Pilsen, which I think is a very challenging map for light tanks. Now, I love coming up to this E7 ridge early, regardless of which side that I spot on. It will give you the opportunity to catch some tanks out in the open as they're heading laterally east or west, and thankfully I spot that already and take them out immediately before he even gets to fire a shot. The autoloader is what defines this particular tank. So it has 8 shells in its clip. Each shell does 90 damage, and there's a very short 1-second intra-clip reload. So you can dump all 8 shells in 7 seconds, which is over 100 damage per second. It is the highest, most compact damage per second for any autoloader of its tier. And that's part of the reason why this tank has a very justifiable reputation for being overpowered. And on top of it, it not only has really good compact burst, but it also has really good damage per minute, which is a little odd with autoloaders. Generally, you trade off damage per minute to gain compact burst. The tank also features a view range of 390, which is 20 meters better than the Tier 7 Tech Tree AMX 1375, and so it's much easier to get to 445 meters of view range, which you will want to try to do in every Tier 6 to 10 light tank that you play. Now, our heavies have deployed most unwisely. Our Black Prince should not be pushing up along the inside of the western ridge on the 4 lane, because he will get trapped and he will be vulnerable to fire from the eastern side of the map, which is very relevant since we had a very weak deployment to the east. Our T-54 lightweight attempted to engage in a brawl with his face and just got wrecked. Somewhere along the line, the LTG also died, and so we're already kind of cornered in the southwest area of the map. Now, what's going to help me a bit is the fact that to exit the eastern side of the map, they have to traverse a pretty large kill zone, right? And so what you would often see other non-Unicums do is just run away and hide in the southwest corner of the map. That's not the right thing to do. What we want to do is punish these tanks as they try to exit. Now, I do get tracked there and briefly set on fire, and I repair the tracks immediately. Now, granted, my movement rate is lowered, but what I don't want to do is be stuck in place waiting for my tracks to get repaired, because sitting duck is 10 times easier to shoot than someone that's actually on the move. And with a small target like this, if I'm at distance, they're going to have a hard time hitting me, right? Even if I have a damaged engine. Now, the 5120, I was really pleading with the guy to back up. He is in a most unwise position where he is, because he's ginormous in terms of size. His turret is butter. He has no camo to speak of, and he will be easily picked off. I think he ends up doing 4 shots of damage, and you might think, well, that's not bad. That's almost his hit points worth. But in a Tier 9 battle like this, especially if he has competent spotting on his team, which he does, he should be sitting back and just farming the heck out of people, or going to a brawling zone where he can pop out and unload 2, 3, 4 shells and maybe only take 1 back in return. Our IS heavy tank should not be doing what he is doing. I know that these guys may not be aware or understand what's going on. I'm spawning in this bush here because I want to see their tanks if they try to advance west through the city, which their T-43 is doing, and then especially as they cross that open ground around the J and K lanes of the map. So like right now, for example, this Leo PTA is trying to cross a very large stretch of open ground, so we easily pick him off. Alright, now my engine is repaired, and since I've got some mobility back, I can go flex and take a look at other areas of the map. I still need to stick around here for a little bit. The good thing, like if you look at our deployment, our tank destroyers in the back, the Rheinmetall Borsig and the T-25-2 are in sensible positions, right? They can fire on those tanks that are along the 1-2 lane. And then our Progetto 46 on the ridge in these bushes has access to both soft cover so he won't get spotted, as well as hard cover after he does get spotted. One thing you'll see a lot of 1357 drivers do, and I personally don't do a lot of it, is they will charge in and YOLO people. And you can get away with this because of that compact burst. If you get in close on a target and go ahead and put them on auto aim, you can potentially drop 720 damage as you circle and run away. In this case, that T10 was getting pounded, and so I go ahead and that first shot penetrated. Even if it didn't, I would have tried putting another 3-4 shells at the least before running away bravely. Okay, so we're down a tank, and I do need to be cognizant of what's going on the southern side of the map, especially since our two heavies on the south side of the map don't really have effective vision. Now that I have my engine repair, what I want to do is set up a soft flank against these tanks that are in the southern corner, southern area of the map. So I'm going to go down to the K lane. There is incredibly deep soft cover there, and so I want to get close enough. And then this IKV, he pushes up a little bit too close. He really probably should have been sitting back in a bush somewhere. What I would have done personally is push up along the K lane if I were in the IKV, and probably stopped over by K6 and just sniped from there. But he got spotted and taken out, and that's big for us. Now this Type 59 may be flankable, right? Our Projecto 46, even though we're down 2 tanks, he's at full hit points and he's making an aggressive play. I think this is a reasonable play. Their Type 59 is already beat up a bit, and so between the Projecto and I, we should be able to take him out. Now, there are a couple things to notice about the tank, the 1357. One is that because of the high rate of fire, the ammo capacity isn't that high, and you can easily burn through your ammo and run out of it. So you can see here, since I'm at like this intermediate distance of about 300 meters, I'm letting each shell fully aim in before firing, and that's of course to maximize the chance that I'm going to hit that tank, but it's also being mindful of the amount of ammo that I have in this tank, which is to say it starts off with a number of shells that you can blow through very quickly because of the high rate of fire and the relatively fast Intra-clip reload. All right, and I do need to get some damage on this T20 and try to help conserve as much of that Projecto's hit points as possible, because he is in a position where he might get run on by the T20, and then the Oni right there just tagged him for a pretty big chunk of health. So aside from the fact that you can run out of ammo pretty quickly, the fact that the aiming time on this tank takes significantly longer than the intra-clip reload, it means that you have to pace your shots depending on how close you are. Now, if you are circling a tank at point-blank distance, you can just put it on auto aim, fire away, and most likely most, if not all, of your shots will land. But starting at around 250 to 300 meters, like you saw earlier with that when I was shooting on that T43, that's when I start to take my time aiming in. And then recognizing, for example, most Scorpions don't run with coated optics, and so unless he's stationary for multiple seconds, and he's been gradually moving backwards, I don't have to worry about him spotting me even though he's inside that white 445 meters of view range. Generally speaking, the squishier, softer tank destroyers will employ binoculars, or at least I just assume players do, because that's the smart thing. That's what I would do. In some of the beefier tank destroyers, I actually run optics with them for reasons that I'll talk about when I review the T95. But the simple thing is that if you have beefy armor, you should be closer to your opponents, and given that optics provides more value since you're going to be constantly pushing up on the move, and then having optics will allow you, when you're in a forward brawling position, to spot their tank destroyers and other snipers, sometimes even before they fire. So you can see my ammo capacity is all the way down to like 4 shells, right? And I have at times been trying to be measured about my shooting. One thing which is kind of really nice is, our AMX, is telling me to get the top gun, and I told the team, like, I don't care if you have the shot, take it. And I mention this because it's kind of interesting. In all the battles I've had in World of Tanks, I've never asked to be given Top Gun or Radley Walters or whatever. In my opinion, if you're going to get kills, they should be earned, and some people get super bent out of shape about kill stealing, and I don't really think kill stealing is a thing. You either get the killing shot or you don't. But I've seen some really bad behavior by quote-unquote friendly players on your team who, will team damage or team kill players who they feel stole their shot. And in my opinion, those players just got to grow up, and more importantly, just get better. Like, if you're a good player, you'll get plenty of shots to kill things. That won't be an issue. Okay, Pilsen. So this map is very challenging for light tank drivers. Obviously, the western side of the map 1-2 and the middle are more kind of brawling areas, and they're very, you can get close enough to people that having camouflage doesn't really matter. You can go to this middle gray patch where their Batchat 12T went. I've tried doing that multiple times, and you can spot the enemies that are on the opposing shelf on the eastern side of the map. So in our case, that would be spotting them at C8. The issue is if you get into those little gray hills, you're easily spotted because there is no meaningful amount of soft cover there, and you're very vulnerable to fire from arties. And a player like me, when I've gone to those middle gray area patches, I tend to get artied a lot, and maybe it's simply because I was the only thing that's lit, so they're shooting me, or maybe because I show up as deep purple in XVM, and people hate Unicum, so they're going to shoot me as much as possible. The other thing you can try to do, and I'm going to flex over in that direction, is push or spot up along the 0 lane. And it's really a huge roll of the dice. The big issue is that if you get spotted on the 0 lane, it is a very open stretch of ground. And so if you're gonna exit it, you're most likely gonna get shot at by multiple tanks, especially this early where only one tank has died. And so, like for example, our Lorraine 40T pushed up inadvisably early and just got absolutely wrecked. Now our Striv 103 is fine where he is for two reasons. One, he's got really good hull armor and he can bounce a lot of the guns frontally on this map. And then two, he's also got ninja camo, right? And what's really fortunate is this Batchat 25T AP has been swatted, so I'm letting these shots aim in, and I land, it looks like, as far as I can tell, 6 out of the 8 shells in that clip for a very productive clip. I do get spotted, and this is a very scary moment, so I'm going to tuck in behind the hull of this 40T for a few seconds. Now I can't stay here because that carcass doesn't provide any meaningful protection from arty, but at least for several seconds it's going to protect me from getting shot at frontally, and then sure enough you'll see arty just fired where I was, and that would not have gone well for me if I just sat there. But pushing, this is a really good example of why pushing down the 0 lane can be dangerous. And some people will say, well, you can just passively spot the 0 lane. I don't like just playing light tanks as pure passive spotters. I think you're ignoring half of your tanks. Certainly light tanks should be employed heavily for spotting, right? But it's not an either or thing, right? And if you look at how Unicum tend to play their light tanks, they are both working in as much damage as possible safely while also spotting for their team. And we have badly lost the 1-2 areas of the map. We didn't really cover it sufficiently with tanks. We have too many tanks that are kind of camping on the eastern side of the map, and so we're in really big danger of getting rolled here in the southwest corner of the map. And so that's why I'm flexing. Now this map is really good for heavies because there are plenty of areas for them to brawl between the 1 through 5 lanes. It's good for mediums because they can flex and they have pretty decent armament. It's also very good for tank destroyers, especially if you're a sniping tank destroyer like our Rheinmetall Borsig who's getting wrecked and not sniping correctly, because you can sit either on the hills that are on the western side of the map or on the shelves on the eastern side of the map. And in both cases, the hills can act as hard cover, like if I back up behind the ridge like this, and there's also abundant soft cover to work with, and so you can work to get that first shot advantage. Now our Rheinmetall Borsig, you can say he's too far into the bushes, too far close to them. So when he fires, all those bushes that are hiding him will no longer be hiding him. So I spot this comet, then back up so those bushes are solid. So even when I fire, I retain the benefit of the camouflage provided by those bushes. And basically, if I hadn't come here, there's a very good chance we would have lost this battle, right? And the reason why is if they roll up and get close to our arties, they can collapse the southwestern side of the map and then pinch us into the southeast corner, right? And so I'm being really careful here. Now, obviously, as they get closer, I'm at more and more risk of getting spotted. But what I'm trying to do is both work in some damage and spot them so that our arties can fire at them. And our arties are going to be super incented to fire at these guys because they're getting close enough to spot them. You'll notice, like with the low caliber 57mm gun on this tank, you're not going to get the triple overmatch mechanic really unless you're firing something that's basically made out of paper. And so you will get some trollish balances. It's what it is. But the fact that this tank has such good compact burst, makes this really powerful. I think from a balancing perspective, because this tank does outperform, like from a tank curves perspective, players tend to do better in this tank than they do in the 13 1375. Now, for some reason, I actually am the reverse. I've done much better in the 1375 than the 1357, and maybe it's because this tank encourages a little bit more of a YOLO playstyle because of that 720 damage in 7 seconds. You can see that the Batchat 25 TAP, those early shots that I put on him have paid heavy dividends. I've now hit him at least 9 times, maybe 10 times, and so I've bled away a very large portion of his health. And so that's why here I'm willing to engage in a brawl, because I know that I can two-shot him. And the gun handling on this is pretty solid for an autoloader. And of course, after killing that tank, I need to make sure to move in a somewhat unpredictable manner, because you have to assume that Artie's going to target you. And it's especially important to pay attention to whether or not Arties are targeting you earlier in game, because some Arties will follow you around. For very good reasons, Arties hate light tanks. Light tanks tend to get Arties killed if those light tanks can survive long enough to get to them. I think like the safest play here would have been to go after their Artie and just ignore that Revelarice. Honestly, I don't know why I'm going back toward the middle of the map to get him, because going after the Arties, I can easily clip out, an Artie potentially too. Although, in this particular case, this is a pretty, at this point, we've come back from the deficit and have established so large of a lead, it's not so much of an issue. That is another nice benefit of having so many shells in the clip. Plenty of opportunities to track, deal module damage, set things on fire, and I do eat a shot from the M4, A1 Revelarice. You want to be careful about, trading damage. At this point in the battle, this is pretty academic. We're going to win no matter, even if I went AFK, we would still win this battle. But you don't want to throw away your hit points, and especially early game, you want to be super conservative with your hit points, because you need them mid to late game so that you can take runs at people, clip them out, and maybe suffer one shot in return. So this tank, from a balancing perspective, if Wargaming were ever, motivated to balance this tank, I think they should, look at either decreasing the number of shells in the clip, or at least increasing the clip reload, because right now this tank has, both that compact burst and the high DPM, and generally speaking with autoloaders, you should only get one or the other. So I will be covering some tech tree tanks coming up, the T95, the Emil 1. Please continue to vote on the community poll, so it gives me an idea of what you guys want to see. And if you enjoy this video, please like it. And if you want to receive a notification as a subscriber for every video, make sure to tap or click the notification bell icon and let me know your feedback on this video.